How does Parshat Vayichi connect to the Godfather? I'm Yoni Berg, and this is Pop Culture and the Parsha. Welcome to Pop Culture and the Parsha, the video series where I take the weekly Parsha and I connect it to some aspect of pop culture. Something like movies, TV shows, plays, whatever. Today we're going to go back to the Godfather. We're going to talk about the Parsha and how it connects to the Godfather. I know I've done it before, but I'm going to keep on doing it because it's an amazing movie and everyone should watch it and everyone should understand how it connects so beautifully to so many other aspects of life, including Torah itself. But I'm getting ahead of myself. How does it connect to Parshat Vayichi? Let's go through the Parsha and find out. So this week's Parsha has in it Yaakov talking to Yosef and telling him that he wants to be buried in Israel, and specifically in Marat HaMachpelah and not in Egypt. He then calls in Yosef's sons, Ephraim and Menashe, famously switches his hands and gives them a reverse bracha. And then he calls in all the rest of his sons, and his sons come in and he gives each of them their individual blessing before he dies. Yaakov then passes away. Yosef gets permission from Paro to take Yaakov's body and bury it in Marat HaMachpelah. He does so. And then when they come back down to Egypt, Yosef reassures his brothers that he is not going to take revenge for the wrong that they did to him by beating him up and selling him. And then the Parsha ends with Yosef dying. So what does any of that have to do with the Godfather? The truth is, not a thing. Good night, everybody. No, I'm just kidding. It doesn't have anything to do with the Parsha. In fact, there is a small part of the Parsha that has to do with the Godfather Part 2, but none of that has to do with the Godfather Part 1. So why did I bring it up? Because I don't want to talk about the Parsha this week. I want to talk about the Haftorah, which I haven't done yet. But this week I want to talk about the Haftorah. A little bit of a twist. The Haftorah this week comes from Malachim, and it talks about the first book of Kings, and it talks about King David on his deathbed giving some advice to his son Shlomo, Solomon, before Solomon is to take over as king. And it tells him a number of things. You're a smart guy, you can handle this, you're capable. And he says, listen, you know about Yoav ben Zeruiah. You know that he killed people like Avner ben Ner and others. I want to make sure that you do the right thing. You're a smart person. You do the right thing. Make sure he doesn't die of old age, which, by the way, is one of my favorite biblical aphorisms. Don't make sure he doesn't die of old age. It sends chills down my spine. Then he says, but Barzillai Hagiladi was a good guy. He took care of me, so I want to make sure that you take care of him. Oh, and also, David tells Solomon, he tells him, Shimi ben Geirah, I promised that I wouldn't kill him. I didn't promise that you wouldn't kill him. You do the smart thing and make sure he does not die of old age. Make sure his death is a bloody one, which also is a pretty cold way of doing things. So what does any of that have to do with the Godfather? Well, there's actually two different things, two different aspects that connect to the Godfather. The first is a general idea of a father telling his son how things are going to be as his son takes over. And there's a wonderful scene in The Godfather where Don Corleone is talking to his son Michael, and he's kind of advising him. And you know that this is not the first time. They actually say in the scene that this is not the first time they've talked about it. And Don Corleone says to him, listen, Barzini's going to set up a meeting, and he's going to set it up through somebody that you trust completely, and that person is going to be a traitor, because at that meeting you're going to be assassinated. So I want you to watch out for that meeting. And the whole time Michael's like, I know. And the Don says, I know we've gone over this before, but I want to make sure. I have to be careful. It's clear that the scene that we're seeing is not the first time that they've discussed this. And I can't help but feel the same is true of the Haftorah, that King David on his deathbed, this can't be the first time that he's talking to Shlomo about ideas of what to do when he's king, about how to handle certain aspects of his role as king once he takes over. To me, it screams like, yes, okay, Dad, you're on your deathbed. I understand. Take it easy. Calm down. But that's exactly the same kind of feel that I get from the Haftorah as I do from that scene in The Godfather. But there's another layer of the Haftorah that connects to the Godfather, and that is when David says to Shlomo, he says about Shimi ben Geirah, he says, I promised I wouldn't kill him. I never promised that you wouldn't kill him. Well, in The Godfather, there are two amazing scenes. Well, they're all amazing scenes. But there's a fantastic scene where Don Corleone is sitting and having a meeting with all of the heads of the crime families from around the country, because there has been a war going on between the different crime families. So they come together for a meeting to make peace and to come to an agreement so that there can be peace between all the families. And at the end of the meeting, Don Corleone very touchingly says, I swear on the souls of my grandchildren that I will not be the one to break the peace that we've made here today. And then he and the other warring families, they hug and everyone applauds, and it's wonderful. It's a great scene. Later on in the movie, after Don Corleone dies, spoiler alert, he dies in the movie at some point, but after he dies, Michael takes over, and he goes and he breaks that peace that they've made. Because again, Don Corleone made the promise that he would not break that peace, but Michael did not make any such promise. And so Michael, in a wonderful scene that is studied in film schools throughout the world, Michael goes and he kills every single one of the 5 families that are competing with him for power in the New York area, making him the leader of the most powerful crime family in the entire New York area. It's an amazing scene, and it just reminds me so much of this Haftorah where David says to him, I promised I wouldn't kill him. I didn't promise you wouldn't kill him. So Michael does the same thing with Don Corleone, and he breaks the peace that the Don vowed never to break. So those are the connections that the Parsha has to the Haftorah. Chazak, chazak, v'nit chazek. This brings us to an end of Sefer Bereshit. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Let me know in the comments if you think this was a good connection to the Haftorah, or if you think that there's a better connection. Let me know if you think there are other connections that I missed. Like and subscribe to the channel. Please feel free to share this Dvar Torah at the Shabbat table. I hope that you guys enjoyed it. And until next week, Shabbat Shalom, everybody.